Right, let's get into some of the teams then. So you said we were talking earlier. So I think actually just in a line of like where they are in the tournament, let's talk about Guild. Because Guild was the team where, if you remember, when we had Barbar on the show at the last Masters, basically, they were the team that was like just outside qualifying, and a lot of people thought in Europe like they're like a quality squad, like who knows how good they're going to be. The fact that supposedly in practice they were good. Then they qualify this time, they win the group, brilliant. They win the group with Optic and everything looking great, but then they just wrecked in the playoffs. Lost to Paper X, who sure is a potential favourite, but then losing to FPX. I mean, you would say, obviously, again, regional person, like that is supposed to be the best European team with Fnatic. Like, what's your take on Guild? Is this, how, like, for example, what's the grade you'd give this? Like, was this a good run from them? Should they have gone further? Did you expect more?
I'm going to say yes, a good run, because they got way further than I thought they would. I didn't think they were actually going to qualify for the playoffs at all. My one sort of disclaimer I'm going to put here is I did see their group stage games, but because I was then working, I didn't see their playoff games.
Fair enough.
But I remember watching the Guild versus Optic game. Now, you can partially put some of that on the fact that Optic looked really like out of whack. Like Ye was not performing in those early games. And so there is partial blame to them. And also that was still a relatively close series. Like I have the score up here. It was 13-11 on the first map to Guild, and then it was 16-14. So that's an overtime score. But I was still really impressed that they beat Optic 2-0 nonetheless. And I think that I was really happy to see Leo especially get a lot of international accolade, because he has been discussed as arguably their best player, and actually in some cases arguably a player who is sort of too good for the rest of the team,
right.
And potentially one of the best initiators and Sova players in the entire world. And so to kind of see him be celebrated for that, I thought was really cool. And it was definitely clear to me, at least, that despite this being the team's first foray into international competition, he was showing up in that sense. And I think that a lot of praise was also given to, I think this was something that we spoke about as sort of predicting, but like a lot of praise was also given to Coldamenta as his sort of IGL prowess being a real grounding force within the team, which is something that potentially if he weren't there, or an IGL of that caliber were not there, maybe they would have been in a lot more of a frenzy than we did see them. But that said, it doesn't shock me that they didn't do so well in the playoffs. The fact that they went up against Paper X as their first team in the play. I said in our last episode that I thought Paper X were a perfectly viable potential winner of this tournament, and I think that that's still looking to be the case. So for Paper X to perform the way that they did and kind of flatten Guild doesn't surprise me. Forsaken especially has just been absolutely nuts for the team, and we already knew that they had these very hyper aggressive ways of playing. That has not really had any successful shutdown by any of their opponents thus far, but also Mindfreak on the team has been playing way above expectations, which has certainly helped them out. And then when Guild went down into the lower bracket, they were playing against FPX, and I just want to check. Okay, so this was the first game that Sugetsu came back in. So Sugetsu was their player who, he's an absolutely nutty player, but his visa was really delayed. They didn't know if he was going to get it, so they were playing with a sub in the group stage. And then for playoffs, he gets his visa in time. So he comes back in the playoffs, and holy fuck, he's been playing like a machine. Like, we talk about players who perform really well online and then they come into the LAN and we don't know what to think of them. Sugetsu didn't even get the group stage to kind of warm up to things. The pressure is on him to basically like save your team and give them a run. And it's like he's just stepped into the playoffs and been a fucking madman. So I think that Guild going up against full force FPX rather than sub FPX, it also doesn't surprise me too much that that went a bit differently. I mean, Guild obviously, FPX is a known quantity for them because they come from the same region. And there have been some weak points for FPX with Angel has definitely received a lot of criticism just because his personal performance has not necessarily been the best in this event so far. So I guess that's why they went to 3 maps, rather than it being any kind of stomp like against Paper X. It was a little bit more so, especially on that first map. But yeah, like, to cut a long story short, I would say that I think Guild outdid my personal expectations. And once they got through into playoffs, they probably matched around what I would have thought they would do.
Also looks like in playoffs they got pretty hard draws, so there's nothing you can really do there. Like,
whoever was going to be seeded against Paper X was going to have a difficult time.
You're supposed to lose that, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of unfortunate, but I do think that Guild are sort of what we just spoke about XSET. Guild have sort of been fortunate to have the opposite experience there, where they did get to go in through the group stage. So they've played Optic, who are an NA team. They played Crew, who are a Latin American team. They played Paper X, who are an APAC team. And then they've played another European team. So actually, I think that Guild will still probably walk away from this event having, reaped a lot of value from it.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.